Hello, all you hardcore boxing fans out there. How are you doing? It's Russell here from Porky's Corner. You've got another treat today. It's Ken from Northern Ireland. We're going to put this on the members area because this kind of stuff, what you're seeing here, is top drawer, just like my mate Rico. And I hope you're enjoying these videos. Now, here he is, the man himself, Ken from Northern Ireland. How are you doing, Ken?
All right, Russell, good to get on, mate. Good to get on and talk about the boxing.
Good man. We'll go straight in then, balls deep. What did you think about the Friday night Frank Warren, aka Bricktop, show?
Terrible. Why are they putting this muck on? You know, think about it, Russell. You know, a month ago, Clarke Frampton sustained a hand injury.
Yeah.
And his coach died. And he's fighting on Friday night, this Saturday night on IFL TV on a free platform. So they won't pay for that type of card, but they're putting this rubbish on. It's not good enough. It's like Sky are going through this transition period of Eddie Hearn. And they don't know. I think Sky don't really know what to do at the minute, and I don't think Eddie Hearn really knows what to do at the minute. And you've got what Frank Warren has got, and I would be honest. See, if I was the broadcaster at BT, I would be very cautious about what's going on because the content isn't good enough. The content is really poor. You know, you had a show 3 weeks ago that was topped by a 4-fight novice fighting a guy that hadn't won a fight.
Yeah,
I think that content is absolutely abysmal, and I think they will struggle with getting an extension unless they buck their ideas up. The two cards on the Friday night and the Saturday night were absolutely terrible. It's putting themselves back years. You know, they've got a lot of good prospects in there. You know, Dennis McCann had a decent win at the weekend. You know, he seems to be getting brought through well. He's active. But you have somebody like David Alled, who I've rated, I tipped as one of my prospects, fighting a guy who was doing boxer size and white collar a couple of years ago with no fights. That isn't good enough.
no,
That's not good enough content. And I think it's good. I said before, Russell, to you that Frank Warren has got a lot of really good prospects there, and he has. I think Frank Warren at this position, maybe 2 years down the line, is going to have a better stable than Matchroom because he's got really good prospects. But what we're being dished up with them is really, really poor. And I'm just sick of what I'm turning this stuff on. It's like I know that Dennis likes Steve Goodwin, even MTK shows. They wouldn't produce something like that there.
no.
So why are we seeing that on a TV platform that they're talking about has one of the biggest budgets in the boxing TV deals? So I think it's absolutely terrible, to be honest. Terrible.
Do you feel that David Adelaide, Archer Sharp, is it? Charles Frankham, he's got Dennis McCann. Other than them four, who else do you think he's got who's a prospect?
Well, you've got that link between the MTK. So you have, it's kind of like there's MTK fighters there that will come in with Frank Warren.
Yeah.
So he's got a lot of them as well. You've got Lewis Crockett from Belfast, who has fought in a lot of Frank Warren / MTK shows, who's doing really, really well. He's got the likes of Harlem Eubank, who I think's been built really well. He's getting proper fights. You've got him. So he's got a couple of fighters there that kind of dip in and out of in and out of MTK and Frank Warren. There's also a lad there from Liverpool called Danny Dignam, who's a southpaw, super middleweight, and I really rate him. I think he's no one's talking about this guy. Him and his brother had a great amateur background. So you've got 6 or 7 really good fighters there that like some of them could top shows now, just with the standard of opposition they're getting and the level of fights that they have. They're just not quite ready for that. But I think Frank Warren is in a good position prospect wise.
Yeah.
But the way the shows are, they're not, you've got 2 good prospects, then you've got muck underneath it. Not muck, but the cards aren't great. They're not, it's like next gen type cards, and you don't want to be seeing that on every other weekend. MTK are doing all their stuff, and I'm not pro MTK, I'm not pro Frank Warren, I'm not pro Matchroom.
Yeah.
I'll give my opinion and I'll say it like it is. So you look at the MTK shows that have been doing on a free-to-air platform, they're a lot better, Russell. They're a lot better than the stuff that Sky and Frank Warren has been showing.
Yeah. Do you feel that Anthony Yard and Dubois getting beat has put Frank on the back foot, and he didn't want to take risks with him? Because the guy David Adelaide fought were shocking, wasn't it?
It's like going down to leisure centre on a Friday night boxercise class. No disrespect to him, that's what it was like. He didn't even seem to know how to step backwards. He couldn't even throw a jab. He couldn't even fence. It was terrible, and that's not David's fault. David will fight whoever's put in front of him. So we're not getting on him. We're just talking about it's very, very poor, and the whole Dubois and the whole thing there with those 2 guys getting beat. They were pay-per-view. They were his only real answer for pay-per-view fighters.
Yeah.
The through Yard and with Kovalev, which it was kind of a gamble. Boxing, it's like timing. You get somebody on their way up or get somebody on their way out. So they didn't quite calculate it well enough. I thought he done okay against Kovalev, but he still got beat. That's a loss. Really, if you're a pay-per-view fighter, you're undefeated and you're looking exciting. He's lost 2 fights now, 2 out of 3. The Dubois fight was, I actually tipped Joe Joyce to beat him because I couldn't see the head movement and stuff, and I think Joe was just built better. So he has to find a pay-per-view star now, and where is he going to find it? Where is it there? It's for David Adelaide. It's going to be 2 or 3 years properly. Dennis McCann, it's hard to get a pay-per-view star at the lower weights, bantamweight, super bantamweight, unless you're acing people like Anone over in Asia. Unless you're doing that, you're not really going to be a massive pay-per-view star, are you?
No, it's going to be interesting to see what moves Frank's going to make in the next 12 months, because David, them prospects we spoke about, and I suppose, I know he's 5-0 and he's not really fighting anybody, but you'd have to put Tommy Fury in that mix because they're giving him the big build-up, aren't they?
Yeah.
So these prospects that he's got, Archie Sharp, Tommy Fury, David Adelaide, Dennis McCann, who's the other guy? Lewis Crocker, is it, or something?
Lewis Crocker from Belfast.
Is that him who were in the British title eliminator with Anthony Tomlinson, and it were called, and Tomlinson and Steffi Bull never answered it?
Yeah.
Well, Tomlinson...
He had a great fight the other week there on the MTK show, and it was very exciting, very polished. That's him.
Well, Tomlinson's we Dennis Hobson now, he's signed with Dennis. I don't know what Dennis is going to do with him, I don't know, but probably got IBO route. They'll bypass the British because I don't think Dennis is keen on working with both, to be honest. I don't know. But if Lewis fights Anthony Tomlinson, that's an hard fight for Anthony. So Dennis will try and match him carefully, go IBO route and try and pick up trinkets, which they're going to have to do because Dennis is fighting for his life with stable he's got, and I can understand the route he's going to go. But what are we in the sport for if you're not wanting to fight British title eliminators and go for British titles? Like Tommy Frank should have fought Sonny for British, shouldn't he?
Yeah, do you know what? For Tommy Frank, you know, I know he hasn't had many knockouts and stuff, and I know he's been active. You know, Dennis has kept him active, which is good, and it shows you Dennis is still in the sport, even though maybe he hasn't got, you know, the TV networks and stuff. He's got Eurosport, but he's still in the sport and he's still scrapping away, which is great. But you know, I think that fight against Sonny Edwards. So Sonny Edwards has got 4 knockouts out of 15 fights. You know, it's a winnable fight. You know, Sonny Edwards is a winnable fight. He's either going to just outbox you or you can outwork him. So it would have been a good fight for Tommy because Sonny's not going to hurt you, really, is he?
No, he ain't. No, he isn't. What else did you think about the Friday Bricktop show?
It was good to see, you know, Sam Maxwell getting a good. He was Friday night, wasn't he, Sam Maxwell? I think he was Friday night. It was good to see him, you know, out. He's a good fighter. I think he split from his coach, Danny Vaughan. He's with Terry Flanagan's coach now. So I don't know what happened there. I don't really want to know, but it's good to see, you know, maybe a lad like that. He's 16-0 now. He's got one of those WBO European belts. Just taking over, you know, fighting anyone, you know, anyone they can bring over with any sort of winning record. But that's really about it. There's nothing really I can really elaborate on the show. I'm not trying to be sarcastic about it. That's it. You know, there wasn't really any quality in the show. Personally, like if that was down the road in a church hall or a leisure centre, I wouldn't pay for it because it's just not. It's not what I want to watch. It's not. I wouldn't pay to go and see it. If it was on TV, I watched it, but I wouldn't pay to see it. And I think now, like you always said about you get your bill and you have a prospect and you have somebody in the middle and you have somebody that is challenging, and that's how you build your shows.
Yeah.
I don't see them shows being built like that at all. It's just like I know Frank was talking about, it's the end of the financial year. We've got to get these guys out. Well, Frank, if it was the end of the financial year, why did you not put Clarke Frampton against Jamal Hearn on TV? You know, give them lads a bit of respect and give them a good platform to work off instead of putting these 3 shows on that were terrible. And you know, it kind of bit him in the backside on Saturday night. You know, it's kind of a wee bit of karma. I feel it was like a wee bit of karma on Saturday night. What happened in that show, but with 2 of his fighters. But we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah. What do you think's the end game at the moment for Frank? Because he's not going to be able to get away with protecting these fighters like he did at the weekend, is he? Much longer with BT Sport. He's got to roll the dice.
No, people, if we're talking about it, Russell, and casual fans are tuning it on and saying, what's going on here? Turn it off. You know, a lot of people now are just talking about UFC. You look what they're putting on, even on their free fight nights. The cards are stacked. Look what Frank's doing. I'm not getting at Frank, but look what Matchroom and Frank have been doing for the last year. And I don't want to hear about the pandemic. You know, if MTK can put on competitive shows who don't have a network, what are Matchroom and Queensbury doing? These fights are terrible, and I think the broadcaster as well. It's not just Frank Warren's fault. I think the broadcaster really needs to take blame for this because they're signing this stuff off. So I think part of the problem is the broadcaster. The broadcaster's saying, right, well, we don't have much live sport on this past year. They'll just sign anything off. I remember a time there that Sky would have turned down fights. Barney Francis wouldn't have let. If Barney Francis was still at Sky now, a lot of this stuff wouldn't be happening. And I don't know who the head of BT is, but if there was no pandemic, I don't think these bills would be approved, and I don't think BT would be wasting money out of their budgets to get these fights through on TV, because people are going to switch off.
Yeah, it's not good. I mean, I want to say positive things and that, but all I'm seeing at the moment is a load of greedy people lining their own pockets, building these fights up as 50-50s, and we know they're not 50-50s, so they're coming out with these one-liners that his game is durable, he's really up for this, kooks, but really we're seeing mismatches, aren't we, on a massive scale, but they're built up as roadman killers.
What's going to happen when someone gets hurt? What happens if somebody gets hurt?
Well, David Adelaide fighting that bum at the weekend was shocking, considering he spars Fury, Joshua, Huey Tyson, Joshua. He's been in with all top guys, and yet they put him in with that guy. That's not even a sparring session for him, is it?
No, you wouldn't. You know, if that guy was in the gym training with David, you wouldn't even let him spar with him. The gulf in class there is, it's boxer size against a world class fighter. And you know what would have happened there? Who would the answer to who would have been the blame? The guy's team for putting him in, the British Boxing Board of Control, or the promoter? So there's three people. You know, see, when I was boxing, my coach didn't let me fight for like a year and a half until I was ready. And when I was ready, I was getting matched against lads my own ability and my own weight.
Yeah.
These guys are professional boxers, and they're putting a guy in who was doing white collar boxer size against a seasoned world-class sparring partner for the best heavyweights in the world. So who approved that on the board? How did that get approved? Yeah. I know it was a last minute opportunity, but who approved that on the British Boxing Board of Control? You know, what would have happened if that guy would have been seriously injured?
Well, they would have run for the hills, wouldn't they? Like Eddie Hill's dad did when Michael Watson got hurt.
And that was what, 25, 30 years ago?
1991, 30 years ago.
1990, yeah. And you think after so long that they talk about having this great safety, and they talk about having this great ethics and the health and safety and the protection of the boxers and the testing and all that there. That's okay, but you need to protect them before they get into the ring. And protecting them before they get into the ring is safeguarding them in the fact where it's like, you're not ready for this fight. You shouldn't know. We're not approving this. How was that fight approved? I've never seen anything as dangerous in a British boxing ring in years. I'll say I was mortified about it, and it's not David Al. We're not sitting here picking on David Al. He's only there to do his job, and he did it. But that guy's team and the promoter and the British Boxing Board of Control they should hang themselves in shame, because that guy's probably got a young family, and they put his health at risk. It's a joke. They're a joke, actually. They're actually a joke.
Yeah, I've actually got a letter here that somebody sent me that the complaint. This letter, I'm just gonna send this letter to you. I obviously don't read the name out on it, who sent it, but I'm gonna send you and I'll let you read it out and let me know what you think. 2 seconds. 2 seconds. This is from. Well, I'll let you read it and let me know what you think. The letter is from, and it's 2 years old, over 2 years ago, this was. So there was a problem over 2 years ago. This is from the Department for Digital Culture and Media Sport. And this is from Dempster Marple's Ministerial Support Team. You want to just read that out and read the date on it and read the rest of it out? And let the fans know what's going on. This is what somebody sent to me. The guy's an author. I'm not going to say his name on here, but the guy's an author, and he's been around boxing all his life. And he's an old gentleman, and he's a nice gentleman. He's obviously he was concerned a couple of years ago about matchmaking and who's signing off on these fights. Just listen to this. Do you want to just in fact, I'll show a screenshot of this. There you go. Hang on a minute. Oh, I've got the letter here. I think. Have a look. All right. I did have. Right. I'll just cover his name up. There you go. That's from the. What is it? Department for this is basically it's Parliament Street, London, SW1A 2BQ. This is politicians. This is what politicians think about the sport of boxing and the health and safety of our fighters. Go on, away to you then. Can I let you read it out?
So what I'm reading for this, government takes the safety and well-being of sports participants very seriously. It is vital that sport is safe and that there is robust measures in place across all sports to protect the health and well-being of those taking part. Our sporting future strategy recognizes that everyone taking part in the sport should be protected and looked after. As a result, the government asked, can I name this person or just miss it out?
No, don't name the person. You can name the politician, but not the person that wrote that complained about it.
Yeah. Okay. To carry out a review of the duty of care that the sport has to its participants. Her report decorated that an entire chapter to safety and injury and medical issues. You are now working with the sports sector to consider recommendations of this report. You can view the report here. It's a government thing, email address. It is not government's role to regulate sport, but rather than to set high level policy and guidelines how to protect how public money is invested in sport by its arm's length bodies, Sport England and UK Sport. England boxing is regulated by International Boxing Association, which sets safety guidelines for amateur boxing and for professional boxing. As you are aware, the governing body is the British Boxing Board of Control. If you have not done so already, I would suggest that you contact the British Boxing Board of Control, which would be best placed to address your concerns. I hope this information is helpful. Yours sincerely, the person the
politician.
The politician. So that was dated 26th of March, 2019.
Dempster Marples, Ministerial Support Team, Parliament Square, London for Digital Culture, Media and Sport, whatever. Basically, and what were the date on it? Oh, 26th of March 2019. So I've waited a little over 2 years. I was going to save that until somebody gets there, but I thought we'd mention it now, just on members area, and let them people digest it, because obviously if you remember, you're super hardcore. Let them people digest it and think, well, Porky were mentioning it X amount of months ago, and look what's happened. Touchwood, nothing happens, but that letter was sent, I think, after Scott Westcarth's death, I believe. Was that 2019? Or was that 18? I forget anyway, but point I want to make is that there's some gambles being took with matchmaking. Somebody's going to get hurt. For example, if Campbell Hatton was anything like his dad and he was an Iceman or kind of Iceman, that kid he's just fought a weekend could have been brown bread. But he couldn't have not with him, could he? But look, the sport needs looking at. It needs somebody to come in and say, look, you're all doing it wrong. But these sort of people are too long in tooth. They're going to hide behind lawyers and cause that much problems because they want to get a few quid out of the job, don't they? But it's the same old families earning the same old money in the sport of boxing. Fighters are not getting paid. Fighters are going in for fights knowing they're going to get beat. Fighters are going and having move-arounds. 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 Are we having a laugh here? So, and it's starting to really, really annoy me because I'm starting to think, what have I got myself involved in? But once you're knee deep in it, I'm one of them people, I don't really quit it much. I've never been a quitter in my life. So I ain't going to quit now. But the point I want to make is that something needs to be done and we keep calling for change. This gentleman here sent that letter over 2 years ago. No, it's changed since then. If anything, it's even worse. It's even worse, Ken. Do you know what I mean? But, okay, then moving on from Friday's show and the adventures of Tintin, what about Saturday's Bricktop show?
Well, he had a prospect. He signed a heavyweight prospect who got to an ABA final. Repton fighter. Apparently, well, they said he was a sparring partner of Anthony Joshua. And all
so were Dave Allen. I don't mean that, was it?
You know, this guy was meant to be this new ace man on the block. A guy called Denton. He got aced by a heavyweight who wasn't even 6 foot. Aced, knocked unconscious. Yeah. Looked like I couldn't believe it. Like from the first round, like pawing his shots. He was pawing his shots and stopping back at the same time. He looked terrified to get hit. Like he looked like he was terrified of being hit. He's an actor, like model type thing.
Yeah.
And got absolutely aced. So there's a prospect gone. He's, you know, you're getting knocked out when you're cruiserweight / heavyweight and you're getting knocked out by a guy who's lost more fights than he's won at that level. Forget about it. When you step up and fight someone like a Lawrence Okoli and you want to get that level, or a Richard Riakporhe, forget about it. It's a waste of time. The top of the bill was a British Commonwealth title fight, which I love to watch. You know, I want to see more British Commonwealth title fights on TV. I think that's the way that our fighters should be built if they want to get the world level. You know, we've spoke about bypass. You know, the titles are being bypassed by WBO, European, IBF, European, international, global, all these worthless global titles, and not really getting to the next level. So it's good to see a British and Commonwealth title fight. But we had a guy there who was tipped. Now, to be honest with you, Russell, I hadn't seen much of this guy. And this last fight, the build-up he got after it was like, I had to hear me right. I was excited about watching this guy, and it's Willie Hutchison. Like, I was excited because the build-up that Frank Warren was giving him, that he was saying he was the next Joe Calzaghe he was going to be a big star in the super middleweight division. They were even talking about him unifying two. He said that, yeah, this guy could do what Joe did. He could be a world title, win a world title at super middleweight and go up to light heavyweight. And I was like, right, I want to see this guy. I tuned in and I seen a couple of his fights and I thought it was a joke. 2 fights ago, Willie Hutchison fought a guy 2-2 and 1. That was 2 fights ago, and he's challenging for a British title. He's fought 2 guys with winning records.
They had him built up as some roadman killer, didn't they?
No. And when I watched him live, I was really disappointed because I thought I was going to see this world-class fighter. Stiff as a board, head in the air. He's punching, his head was up in the clouds, slapping his punches, absolutely no defense whatsoever, trying to fight with a shoulder roll. Why are these guys, it looks like some fighters are just watching Floyd Mayweather and thinking, yeah, I want to do that, but have no science behind the style. He got hurt and he didn't know how to defend himself. He couldn't even hold on. When you're on the ropes and you're getting buzzed, you either move or you hold. And he didn't do any. Lennox Clarke, brilliant. The guy was 19-1, had a hard fight before that for British. So he's more seasoned at British level. He came through the white collar scene, which, compared to what Willie Hutchison came through, was a top class amateur. So it just shows you, how fighters are being built. Lennox Clarke has been busy throughout his career. He was 19-1, and Willie Hutchison was 9-0, and given this massive build-up, I wasn't shocked watching it. They're all talking about this. It was a big, massive shock. How was it? How was it a shock? It wasn't a shock. I look at them head to head, and I know Willie Hutchison early on was buzzing him and throwing these big flashy combinations, and that's okay doing that for 3 or 4 rounds. But when you have a 12-round fight, it doesn't really mean anything. You need to be doing it from round 1 to round 12. And he gets smashed to bits, knocked unconscious. So if you can't beat a guy who's come through, no disrespect to Lennox Clarke, he's a brilliant fighter. I'm delighted for him. I'm delighted for his team. I think it's great that these guys are training hard, sparring, doing it the hard way, have a close-knit team, aren't getting the build-up, and they're proving people wrong. That's what boxing's about.
Yeah.
But Willie Hutchison was meant to be could be a 2-weight world champion. He couldn't beat Lennox Clarke, who hadn't even an amateur career. Yeah. So how is he going to get the world level? It is a shambles, and that's another prospect gone. That's another one of Frank Warren's supposed, pay-per-view prospects. Because really, Russell, if you're getting that build-up and you're undefeated, they're looking to get you into a platform to be a pay-per-view fighter. That's what all promoters want, pay-per-view prospects, and want to get their fighters into that slot. That's gone now. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's exciting times ahead, Johnny. This is why we love this sport so much, Matt.
So,
what about Dominic Ingle? Where does this leave him in his relationship with little Willie Hutchison?
He lost. What was it? He's lost what was it? The lad on the Matchroom card 2 weeks. What do you call him? The lad that fought the Mexican. They had the row in the corner.
Yeah.
He had that defeat. He's got this defeat with Willie Hutchison. His next big fight is Liam Williams against Demetrio Andrade, who I don't think has a chance against Andrade. I don't even think, I think that's going to be a really hard night's work for him. So it's not really looking great for them at the minute, because they've got two of his main fighters that have lost badly, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on the Liam Williams fight, a lot of pressure. So then you've got the kid Galahad, who doesn't fight and nobody wants to watch, who's a drug cheat. So it's going to test the resolve of the gym. I know he's got Bradley Skeet at the minute. He's been training Bradley Skeet up in Sheffield. So, I always remember the Ingle fighters, Russell. So I always remember watching the likes of, even though Johnny Nelson wasn't particularly exciting, he was a hard night's work for anybody. He could defend himself. He was really awkward. You had fighters like Ishan Pickering, who was a hard night's work for anyone. Those type style fighters, low hands, they could move, they could switch, they could pivot. Junior Witter, look how Junior Witter was a nightmare for anyone.
Yeah, but the point you're missing here is, right, people like your Johnny Nelsons, right? He's got the heart of a breadcrumb. They're not there to engage. They're throwing a jab and they're going backwards while they're throwing it. That's called reaching. You know that, don't you?
Yeah.
That's how they fight. That's the Ingle style, so to speak. Although it's really technically the Heddle Bomber Graham style.
Yeah. Yeah. So my point is, what I'm trying to say is, it didn't see many of them fighters getting stopped, like further back. Now it seems to be that style has been totally diluted. It's not that style anymore. They don't seem to have that evasive. They're not as evasive as they were. So I think the style in that gym's kind of been lost a wee bit, and you can see now that it's not being exposed, but they're more susceptible to get beat now. It's not as strong, as stable as it was.
Okay. What about rest of Bricktop's show?
So you've got here, let me see, David, let me see, I spoke about Dennis McCann, I spoke about Nathan Gorman. Nathan Gorman, he seems to be a wee bit more aggressive. He's not as looking to be as flashy in his approach. He was fighting Pavel Sar. He's not really stopped that much. So he did a job on him. He did a good job on who he had on the night pretty early.
Yeah.
I know he gets a lot of stick about his weight. At heavyweight, I kind of judge the fighter on how they perform, on not how they look. And we've done a good job on Pavel Sar. He's trying to get his career back on track after the WA fight. He just completely froze and got beat up. So I think he's got that stage where he needs to prove himself to get back into any type of title contention. So I'm not going to judge him. His last fight, David Hay ripped him apart, after the fight, about his look and all, and about how, you can't look like that, and how you have to be in better shape and all. Well, really, if you're winning fights, Russell, and you're doing a job on people, it's not about, like at heavyweight, it's not about the muscles, and it's not about how you look. It's about how you perform. And I think he doesn't look great, but he's getting the job done, and he's winning, and he's knocking people out, and he's stopping people. And as a heavyweight, that's what you really want to be doing to build yourself. So I think it's kind of like they're trying to get him back up. I know, like, way back, he's a nephew of Bartley Gorman.
What's that got to do with what's that got to do with price of fish, though?
But it's kind of like he's got a story. You know, like they want to. Like they want to build him. You know, that's all they've talked about. But I think it was a decent win for him. You know, what I'm trying to say is it was a decent win for him. He stopped the guy. There's going to be a potential fight there with David Adelaide down the line. That, you know, there's a bit of to and fro there. So it's kind of like a decent win for him. He's been more active than he's been the last couple of years. So I think it's a decent win for him. You know, I think Frank needs heavyweights on his cards to get a bit of interest in them, just because they've been so poor.
Yeah. He beat Pavel Sour though, didn't he? Old Pavel Sour Cream. I mean, if you can't, you've got to. He did what he should have done to Pavel Sour. If you can't deal with Pavel Sour like he did, you're in the wrong game. You need to go get a job in a warehouse packing boxes up at Asda or something, don't you? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was what it was, really, wasn't it? There's nothing else that really. It was what it was.
Yeah. What about the main event?
On Saturday night was the main event on that card. Was it not the Willie Hutchison fight?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. What do you think about what's next for Lennox Clarke?
He can defend his British Commonwealth title. There could be maybe a European title fight. I think at super middleweight, there's opportunities for him to, you know, when was the last time anyone actually won a British title outright?
There you go.
We're at Lewis
Ritson.
Yeah, that's one. And who was it before that? Who did it before? Frotch. And that was like maybe 5 or 6. Brian Rhodes, you know, that was probably 5 or 6 years before. So I think Lennox Clarke is at that level, Russell, where I don't think he's quite ready for maybe a European title, or where he's nowhere not ready for a world title fight, but he's ready to earn money in defending his British and Commonwealth titles.
If you back
and getting more experience.
If you back up a little bit, when Frotch knocked out Damon Hague, right, for British title, and he was defending his Commonwealth. I think he was vacant British. He was defending his Commonwealth. He wasn't ready for Carl Zaggy then, Carl Frotch, and he'll tell you that. But what he did, he had loads of defences of his British and Commonwealth, and he learnt his craft and moved up the rankings. He didn't fight for monkey belts. Trinket belts.
So he fought for a Commonwealth title fight was Charles Adamu. That was his Commonwealth title win. That's a hard fight. Charles Adamu, you know, was fighting Billy Joe Saunders 2 years ago and was giving him a bit of a workout. The Damon Hague fight, Damon Hague had a massive, like, was that on one of Dennis's shows? I think that was on terrestrial TV. Was that on terrestrial TV?
BBC.
Yeah, I remember watching that, and Damon Hague was like 20 something and 0 at the time. Am I right?
No, I think David Hague had been beat. I think he had a minor world title at the time, and they were fighting for British, but Ingles were training him, Dominic Ingle, and Witter were in corner on night, and basically they were saying they were going to do this and going to do that, and Frotch cut him down like Cheeseman for round 1.
I remember watching that, and I think you're right. He had a WBF world title, and he was featured in Boxing Monthly every other week.
Well, that would
advertising protein and all that stuff. And I remember when Frotch hit him, his legs went to absolute jelly, and he was stopped. But the point you're making, Russell, is that he fought his way up. He fought for the British title. He fought I remember Frotch had a real beef with Tony Dobson, and that was a good fight. You know, as much as Tony Dobson wasn't like world level, he was still a good, hard domestic level fight. And Frotch went through everybody domestically. He beat Robin Reed. He beat Brian McGee. He beat those fighters that we spoke about. And you look at them, you look at those fighters, Russell. Many fighters at the minute, before they get the world level, have a resume like that. None.
Yeah. Okay. Well, can I just point out that Damon Hague was a WBF champion at middleweight. I think he might have been stepping up to super middleweight. He was a big lad, but afterwards, I think him and Carl and the girlfriends went out for a bite to eat the next night. So that was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's what it should be about.
Damon Hague was a naughty kid. He's from up Derby on that end, I think, but he was a bit of a naughty lad, like back in the day. Back in the day, and he's turned his life around, and they're good pals, him and Froch. So that's good, and that's how boxing should be, isn't it?
Yeah, he was, for somebody to come back, he had a lot of fights. He won a fringe world title. He was in great shape. He got himself on TV and the magazines. Absolutely brilliant. That's a good boxing story. I've never heard of him from it. I'm sure he's probably training and PTing and looking after, his own gym and stuff, which is good. So yeah, fair play to him. Fair play to him.
Okay then, moving on then. Let's get down to the Eddie Hills Bonanza show, if we could call it that.
Do you want me to be brutal?
Hang on a second, let me just point this out. What I'm going to do a video tomorrow on my personal opinion on those three shows, but I've let you have a lot to say because you've got a lot of rattle, haven't you, Ken? You've got a lot of rattle, haven't you? You're like Harley Marshall, he's got a lot of rattle, but obviously I've got a few things jotted down that I'm going to film tomorrow because I've got loads on today. But I'm going to let you give your opinion now on the Eddie Hills 4-0 Iceman from Billericay, free by way of. Away you go.
Where do you want me to start?
Start at the very beginning. Work your way up on box record. It's not rocket science, is it? Work your way up from
Okay. So
Marnie Baker.
So Baker, I like him. I met him in Belfast. He's a decent guy. He's a good story, but he hasn't knocked anybody out. Hasn't stopped anybody. He's been put in with these good prospects, and that lad Kamari is a good fighter. Looks a hard night for anyone.
Hello. Yeah, there you go. Trolls. Can't help the sense, can they? Go on, mate, you were saying.
I'm just going to get straight to the point. I think he was overmatched. Baker, yeah. He's overmatched with a guy who is a really good prospect. Baker, if he doesn't outwork you, he's not going to outbox you, and he's not going to knock you out. So he's either going to outwork you, and that's it. I thought he was overmatched, and if it keeps up, I don't want to see him overmatched and get hurt. I thought that was a fight that he was never going to win. Never. It was like a 90-10 percentage fight for him to win. And the only way he was going to win that is with like a clash of heads or something like that.
Yeah. So
I thought he was absolutely outmatched. And I think they were just using him. All this, thanks, Eddie, for giving me a chance and all. And thank you for this and that. No, that's good. Eddie's giving him chances because he likes him, but he's being used. And I hope he was paid well for it, because fights like that on a pay-per-view platform isn't good enough. He was totally outclassed, totally outclassed. I could have sat and had a power nap and woke up, and I would have known who won the fight. It was that one-sided, and I'm actually surprised it went longer than what it did, and it just shows you how tough Kane is. But I don't want to see fights like that on pay-per-view. Wasn't competitive one bit. Oh, so no, it's not it wasn't really a pay. What I'm trying to say is, it wasn't a pay-per-view fight, and there was another lad there who hasn't stopped anyone, was overmatched. Overmatched. The next fight was the Nick Webb fight, which he was in as a B-side. He was brought in to get beat, and I'm delighted to see Nick Webb win because I like him. I genuinely like him. I know he gets a bit of stick about the Dave Allen loss. I'm sick of hearing about that. He won the Ultimate Boxer competition. He's got a couple of good wins. He won on what he done on Saturday night was like, I heard one of his coaches talking after it, and it was just some guy in the team saying, yeah, it was simple. Put him on the back foot and hit him with 1-2. That was it. There was no sermon. There was no sermon after it about all the tactics and what they worked on. Simple old school boxing. He's trained by Scott Welch, who's a brilliant guy who's been around boxing a long time, fought for a world title, a legit hard guy. You don't see him on platforms talking about, all the tactics and all the coaches and all this nonsense that they do in camp. So I'm delighted for that team because they deserve it. And I think it was a great win for him. They were talking about this guy. He had a great amateur experience and he won those WBS fights, that, what do you call that? It's not quite pro, but not quite amateur. What do you call that?
That tournament that they had, we had no headgear.
Yeah. So he was doing well on that. He was winning all these fights and he was smashed to bits by Nick Webb. I'm delighted. Then after we had on another platform, we had the Cabbage. The Cabbage come in to the interview and just ruined the whole thing.
Who's the Cabbage?
Could he not?
Babbage.
The Cabbage Bob or Savage or Bobbage or Cabbage or whatever.
Yeah. Savage.
The Savage Cabbage. He comes in and butts into the interview when they're talking about the biggest one of his career.
Pantomime!
Go away, will you? Go away. What was he even there for? He wasn't on the bill.
2 seconds. Well, he were there to call the winner out because what happens is, and I'll tell you now, what happens is when they want to sell a fight and they know who's going to win, they ask the future opponent to turn up on the night. It's just Matchroom have been doing it for years, haven't they?
Yeah, scripts. WWE.
WWE, Vince McMahon. That's basically what it is.
Well, do you know what? See if he fights him, Nick Webb. I hope he gets knocked out. Because why is Savage? Why is the Cabbage on Sky? Because he's not from UK. I don't think he sells tickets. I don't really know anything about him other than being a sparring partner at Dillian Whyte. So why is he getting a big build up over other fighters?
Yeah, I see what I don't know, man. I don't know, but he's a Dillian Whyte fighter, Savage or Cabbage, whatever it's called. He's a Dillian Whyte fighter, so fit like Fabio Warder, they're going to make a big fuss of him. Like Campbell Hatton is a Joshua fighter. They're going to make a fuss of him, aren't they?
Yeah, even got into the Wardley fight against the drug cheat, drummer boy or whatever. What a stupid nickname.
Who's that? Melina.
You know what? For years, Eddie Hills, the Billericay Iceman, 2-time skills bout champion, undefeated, was talking about Joshua's great resume and how he fought Eric Molina and this and that. That just shows you what a terrible fight that was at the time. He's getting smashed to bits by Fabian Wardley. 3 years ago, he was fighting on Sky Box Office against Anthony Joshua. So, Yeah, it just shows you how of a farce, what of a farce that fight actually was. And it didn't really prove anything. You know, already he landed a couple of good shots and then got knocked out. But to be honest with you, you know, he failed a drugs test a couple of years ago.
Who did?
Eric Molina.
Oh, yeah.
You know, why did the British Boxing Board of Control sanction that? You know, he's 38-year-old drug cheat from America. How did that get sanctioned?
Point I want to make is the headline acts with two drug cheats on it. Dillian Whyte against Povetkin. How many drug cheats were on that show then?
3.
All right then, moving on from Nick Webb. Good luck to Nick Webb. I like him. He's likeable.
I like him.
The other guy, Campbell Hatton. What were all that about?
So, you know, I can see what they were trying to do. I can see they're trying to build them. You know, you bring fighters free on these cards. I remember big prospects were getting brought through and fighting on the dark, you know, before TV and maybe a wee bit recorded. They're putting a lot of pressure on them. I'm not running them down. I want them to do well. I want to see every British fighter doing well. He's a young kid. But I think giving him that build-up is a lot of pressure. And you could see it. He was so stiff. He was so tight. And I think Ricky Hatton, you know, I think Ricky loves the limelight and has loved the limelight all week about it. And I think really if, you know, they wanted him to do well, they would say, right, you know what? He's not ready for this yet. We don't want them being featured so highly up the card and on TV and getting this documentaries made about him because he's being put on such a pedestal and people are expecting him to be as good as his dad. You know, he had 24 amateur fights. His dad was a world-level amateur, world-class amateur, fought in world championships, got bronze medal, won multiple ABA titles, right the whole way up. Campbell hasn't had that experience. He hasn't had anywhere near that experience. So for them to be comparing him to his dad, I think he's not even anywhere near that level. I thought that he's a young kid. I want him to do well. I'm not picking on him or anything, but I think there's a lot of pressure on him. He's only new in the sport as amateur, never mind being on terrestrial TV. His arms were so wide. He was winging so much. He's losing so much length on his shots technically. I think he was so stiff. He was trying to land the big shots, and that's understandable because he's a young kid with no experience. I think Ricky Hatton and the team need to say, you know what, Eddie? He's not ready for this. He needs to be built up.
All right, then I'm going to throw a curveball in here. They were giving it the big licks, weren't they, before the show? But afterwards, once they've seen how really good he were, and he wasn't that good, really, to be honest, or he had an off night. They were talking about baby steps. So they can't have it both ways after the big build-up, can they?
No. You know, it's if he'd have knocked that guy out, it would have been right. He's this and he's that, but all of a sudden they were backtracking. If they were backtracking, then if it's baby steps, why was he on a pay-per-view platform at prime time? Why was he on at that time?
Look, his dad's what a promoter. They know the game, don't they? They're going to market him. He's walking around in a Man City top and blah de blah, and they're going to play men at people and all this and all that. Look, Ricky Hatton used to let Liam Gallagher go into the ring with him just to piggyback on their fans. Look, they know what they're doing, but no offence, but I never really rated Ricky Hatton as a boxer myself. Anyway, yeah, he won a world title. He's got 8 wins over world champions, but a lot of them were all washed up. Who did he really beat that were the real deal? Oh, Costa Zoo. He was over ill when he got him, wasn't he? He's not got an elite win. He's famous for getting stopped by the two Pacquiao and Mayweather, isn't he? That's what he's famous for. That's it. The rest of it were just WBU defences, won it for years. Dennis had him for 4 fights and he didn't look good. Then he looked finished. He looked finished when Dennis had him.
Yeah, Dennis had him for the Carlos Mauza fight. He had him for that. And
yeah,
it was
4 fights with Dennis, 4.
Terrible. I think did Dennis have him with the Juan Aranga fight?
They had one fight when he stepped up and he looked awful.
Johnny Galazzo.
Well, that fight, I think, the last one he had with Dennis, and then
he didn't win that fight.
No, he got the decision, didn't he? But what happened is Pound Note Ray, his father, they wanted the Mayweather fight, and Dennis said, "Look, why don't we just build him up? I've got a deal here with Bob Arum. Build him up because he's not ready for Mayweather yet." And they thought he were already spent then, so they panicked and threw him in with Mayweather. Then panicked again and threw him in with Manny Pacquiao. So, but look, they're about money, Attons. That's why they're wheeling Campbell Hatton out. It's about money to them. They've all got to eat, and that's what they're going to do. And that's just how it is. It's sad to see millionaires putting a kid in, saying is this and is that, and blah blah blah, and trying to market it as he's this roadman killer, and basically he's a poodle. So,
Russell, he was fighting a guy that was 0-10. Yeah. Why is that on TV? Why, Russell? Think about it, right? So we have seen this last 2 months 3 fights on primetime TV with guys who haven't won a fight.
Tommy Fury's opponent, Campbell Hatton's opponent, shockers. All right, then, well, let's get off this because it just gives me indigestion. The next fight, which is the next one up, is it Cheeseman Metcalf or Conga McKinson?
I'm going to go Conga McKinson. So there you go. There's another big prospect. Paddy Hearn prospect beat. He's beat by a guy who was 19-0, who's been busy, who hasn't really been getting any sort of build-up. He's an MTK fighter. So, Congo was running around this last fight. He had his own gloves. He had his own design of gloves, and he hasn't even won a proper, domestic title yet. Yeah. He's got the big build-up. He's got this. He's got that, and he was beat by a guy, an MTK guy who's been working his socks off, fighting in smaller hall shows. Mm. It's what boxing's about, and I think a lot of these guys that they're getting on TV now, they're getting the build-up, and they're thinking, "Oh, wait, it's all right. I just need to turn up." So they're getting it too early, and they're taking it for granted, and they're being exposed. He's not world level. Chris Congo, I don't care what anyone says. I don't care who's sparring with in the gym. I don't care, what trainers say about him being talented. It's all right being talented, but it's on the night, and he get beat. He get beat at not even domestic level yet. Wasn't even for a British title. So going and winning a world title, forget about it. Forget about it.
All right then. Cheeseman Metcalf. I'd like to see Conga McKinson again, but Cheeseman Metcalf saved the show, didn't it?
Brilliant fight, Russell. It's what we want. It's what we have been speaking about. It was a British Commonwealth title fight. Metcalf, he worked, his background with his dad, Shane Neary, who was a brilliant fighter in his own right. He's got a good story. He's been working really hard. He's had a lot of fights, like over 20 fights. He brought it. He went and, he could have went and fought for a global belt or a WBO Europe. No, he went and fought Cheeseman. And fair play to him. I think it was an absolutely brilliant domestic fight. It's the fights that we want to see. A British Commonwealth title fight. It's a proper, legit domestic fight. I fought Cheeseman. I've given him a bit of stick in the past. I thought he looked terrible against the Garcia. Wasn't ready for that. He was in that war with. He was in a couple of wars. He lost the Fitzgerald fight, and I think he's come back a better fighter. He's come back a better fighter. I thought at the weekend that he was boxing a lot better. He was boxing at a lower pace early.
Yeah.
And it was a absolutely it was a switch of a coin. You know, when he got the knockout, he was hurt himself, and it was a brilliant domestic fight. It was the best fight of the whole weekend, of all the fights.
Yeah.
So I think that's what boxing needs now. I think we need more domestic fights like that, because all these other titles, they don't produce quality like that. And I think that's probably one of the best fights we've seen in quite some time. And I'm kind of happy for Ted, because he's had a tough time. You know, he's documented a lot of things, and he's had a couple of losses, and he's doing it the hard way, Russell. You know, he's doing it the hard way. So I would love to see him and Fowler fight next. I think that's the logical step.
Well, good luck to Ted Cheeseman, though, in my opinion, aka Quasimodo. So he's talking talking like that, age 25. It's like Eddie Hearn really cares for him, doesn't he? And Tony Sims, they're really looking after him, aren't they? They're developing a great style for him, aren't they?
You know, I think the last lot of fights, I think he boxed a lot better than this fight than he did this last three, where he's just been. I think he realizes himself that he can't have a sustainable career or future fighting like that. It's just not on.
Yeah. All right then. I suppose we're on to the main course now, aren't we?
Where do you want me to start?
42-year-old, COVID. He's had COVID. He was badly for a week, and 2 injuries since they fought in August. They dug him up, didn't they?
I remember a couple of years ago, Russell, I seen the worst world title fight ever, and it was Vladimir Klitschko against Hasim Rahman. And Hasim Rahman was that bad, he couldn't even get in the ring. I had to lift him on the steps. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. What I was seeing on Saturday night was the exact same. I seen a fighter who is shot to pieces. He was that bad. His balance was that bad. He had to stand square because he couldn't stand side on. His balance was that bad. He looked like he hadn't been in the gym for weeks. You know, he was 6 pounds, I think, heavier than the last time. He looked it.
Yeah.
Like, if you need to bring in 3 coaches and spend 6 months in camp to win a fight like that, you're not going to beat Deontay Wilder.
No. Okay, then, so Dillian Whyte stopped him, but he didn't stop him as emphatically as Povetkin stopped Dillian, but he stopped him. He was never in the fight, Povetkin. He want a bigger man on the night, a smaller man. What next for Povetkin? I say retirement. Do you agree?
Has to retire. To retire.
What next for Dillian Whyte? He's calling out Trevor Bryan. I mean, who's going to want that on pay-per-view?
I watched that last fight with Trevor Bryan fighting a guy who Joe Joyce stopped in less than 10 fights. He was overweight. I actually think the way the camera work was that they were only looking at the upper body. They weren't even zooming in. He was that fat. It's a terrible fight. Trevor Bryan is a terrible heavyweight. He didn't win a world title. How can you be a world champion against a guy who was knocked out his last fight in like 2 rounds? And the shenanigans with WBA and that thing. He's a Don King fighter. I don't think Eddie Hills would work with Don King. And I just think it's a terrible fight. It's awful. I don't even want to watch that. I think it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
Trevor Bryan is the worst heavyweight
ever since
champion.
Charlie Martin.
Yeah, terrible. And Manuel Charge pretty awful as well. And if Manuel Charge got better on you, forget about it. No, I don't even want to. Dillian Whyte's in a sticky position. He knows now that he's not going to fight for the WBC title in the next 2 years because did you not notice the language at the weekend? Did you not notice the language where they weren't talking about the WBC title anymore? So if they're not talking about the WBC title anymore, they're basically telling us that the Fury Joshua fight isn't happening anytime soon.
No.
So where does he go from here? He's just going to have to stay relevant. They're going to have to keep him relevant. I don't want to see likes of Oscar Rivas type fights in pay-per-view again because Oscar Rivas before that fight wasn't even a world-class fighter. I hadn't even heard of him. So they're going to have to keep him relevant. How are they going to do that? What they want to get Okole, win the cruiserweight belts as quickly as possible and get him in the pay-per-view fight with Dillian Whyte as soon as possible because they can't make money with Dillian Whyte now because he doesn't sell out the O2 and they have to bring a name over to fight him in pay-per-view. And does he even do the pay-per-view numbers? I don't think he does.
Dillian Whyte's a 200k man at pay-per-view, that's it. And whenever they've got 200,000 people paying £20, that's 4 million going into pot. You know what I mean? So everybody's eating off it, aren't they? They're not eating a lot, but they're eating. You'll probably clear £1 million on that fight, Dylan, net. Shocking.
I listened to a thing the other day there of a certain person asking Mark Tibbs ridiculous questions and embarrassing questions.
Rob Tebber.
Really
personal questions.
It just shows you where these people come from. And I actually was angry because it made Mark uncomfortable and I didn't like what he was asking him. It was just disrespectful. But Mark basically said about this is what he needs to do and this is what he needs to do and this is how
he did do it. He did do it as well. He did it. He gave the blueprint, didn't he?
He did do it. So it was a great thing for Mark Tibbs that, I heard Hard Shadow Night on 2 days before talking about what they were going to do. It was the complete opposite of what Dillian actually done on the night. Or they were going to stand in front of him and jab him and work the jab and keep him working and keep it a high tempo because he's older. And as soon as Mark Tibbs comes on and gives his professional opinion on the fight, it just shows you what a good guy Mark Tibbs is, that he actually went on and spoke with a lot of class, didn't say anything, and basically give his professional opinion and advice that he wasn't going to get any credit for and wasn't going to get paid for. I think that was the best part of the whole win. The best part of Dillian Whyte winning at the weekend was Mark Tibbs.
Yeah.
Showing his class.
Yeah.
That's the only positive I can take out of it.
Okay, then. One last question. Will Dillian Whyte take the fight with Deontay Wilder at Wembley this year? Yes or no?
I like to talk. So who else is Dillian Whyte going to cash out against? Cash out.
Not Wilder. It'll be Fury, won't it, or Joshua?
That's 3 years away. That's not going to happen.
Well, you have to fight Wilder then, won't it? Because who's going to put money up for Trevor Bryan?
Nobody.
And the Trevor Bryan fight, Don King will want options on that, won't he?
No chance. Eddie Hills will not work with Don King. No chance. Absolutely no chance. Dillian Whyte's injured every camp. He tore his hamstring, apparently. He's got so many injuries. He's not going to fight for the world title for another 2 years. Can't Dillian Whyte continue going through these camps with all the injuries he's had? So I think if he's offered that fight, it's a chance for him to cash out and just work with his fighters, because he knows that long term, all these belts are going to be held up for so long.
Yeah.
And I can't see him getting a big money fight against. Who else in the division is he going to get a big money fight against? No, nobody. So yes, I think he would take that fight because he's going to get a packet for that fight. I think that would be his cash out fight.
Well,
and Eddie Hearn knows that.
Well, Dillian Whyte's 33 next week.
Yep.
So he's no spring chicken no more. He's got miles on clock. A lot of miles on clock, let me tell you. A lot of miles. He's not fresh. He's the miles on the clock. You don't see him calling out Joe Joyce, though, do you? I saw Joe Gallagher put a tweet out saying, what about Joyce White? And what about a fight I want to see, Yoka versus White? He don't call them boys out, does he?
No, Tony Yoka's. Nobody's talking about Tony Yoka. Nobody. So.
Okie dokie. Okie dokie then. Well, listen, we had over an hour and 15 minutes. Thanks for coming on, Ken. We'll get this out probably tomorrow, day after, on members area, and keep everybody happy. They've already had your 10 videos on the members for the month of March. So I hope you've enjoyed them all. I hope you enjoyed Once Upon a Time in Rotherham. Did you enjoy that?
I have to watch it. I'm going to watch it later on. I was just checking all the interviews and all the stuff for the weekend. I'll watch that later.
Okay. Well, listen, thanks for coming on, Ken. You spoke elegantly. You can talk. You should be a politician.
What? You trying to say I'm full of shit?
No, I'm saying you could rub it on. No, I'll just let you talk today and get it out of your system, because you're the guest, so starting to let guests have a bit more of a say. Those who know what they're on with. Thanks for coming on. It's been a pleasure. We will speak again, and I'll let you know what's happening with the group stuff with Zoom and that. I've got a meeting in 10 minutes. Yeah, I'm going to put it to me. We have to pay 120 quid, I think, to join it. It's Zoom, isn't it? So I'm going to have to get in his good books. Okay, well, listen, peace out. Keep on trucking. Keep sporting boxing. Don't have nightmares, Ken, and all the best for the rest of the week. Nice day today. Go get some sun on your back. Cheers, Ken.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Russell.
Bye.
Thanks, mate.